Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Miranda, and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. So I realized I haven't done a book recommendation video in a while, and I was inspired by the fact that it's actually my anniversary with my husband this week. So I am doing a fantasy book series video, specifically ones that have a really great romantic plot in them. So the romances kind of vary in these books, but I did try to pick 5 series that had romances that were engaging and that I liked even upon a reread. Well, except for one. One series I've only read once, but I adore it. So let's get into them. I've sorts of ranked them. And I'm going to start with the one that's ranked number 5 is ranked so because the love story is a love triangle, which only kind of works itself out by the end. But the actual plot of the books is still very engaging, and I highly enjoy them. They're definitely worth rereading. And that is the Witches of East End books by Melissa de la Cruz. It is a trilogy of books, and the love triangle within the books is very interesting as there's reincarnation and different really complex things going on and a big what if, who is the true love, who is not the actual true love, and someone a trickster, someone lying. It's very engaging, and it is actually a tie-in with her Blue Bloods series. This is actually an adult series versus Blue Bloods being a young adult series, but both are really, really readable, really enjoyable. And this one, instead of with the Blue Bloods, the vampires are actually angels who reincarnate time and time again. So she does like that reincarnation theme in her series. This is that all of the witches were once Norse gods and goddesses. So it's very, very fun and engaging to read. And I truly enjoy the way these books play out and how history is entwined and mythology is entwined within them. That's why they did get on this list. And the love story is very sweet. I actually sort of like the way the love story is done in the series a little bit better, but that series was never really completed. It only got 2 seasons and then ended because the series had it very firmly. She knows who she loves and she's chosen somebody. Freya has chosen a partner versus this, even towards the end, is who is it? Or are they all just 3 together? It's a little unclear. I do know there was a sequel duology that was young adult that followed a new generation of witches that might shed a little clarity. I have not read those 2, so maybe there's clarity there. I'm not really sure though. Moving on. My number 4 choice is actually the Charlaine Harris Sookie Stackhouse novels. They're also known as the Southern Vampire Mysteries. Yes, these are the books that True Blood is based upon. Now, they are so different though. True Blood is super fun, and I truly enjoy the series, but the way the love story plays out in these books, that is Sookie's many love interests throughout the books, works so much better for me because it seems to come full circle. I won't spoil things, but who she ends up with and how that goes on throughout the books of this series is just, it's so much better because at the end of the series, the actual, True Blood television series, it's very unsatisfying for me. So when I went and read the books after watching the show, I enjoyed aspects of how much content was in the books because there's so many of them, but also truly enjoyed how her romantic relationships evolved over time. I will say one thing, she actually does like have a fully fleshed out relationship with Eric at one point in the books, which is not fully fleshed out in the series. And I much prefer this because there is a full circle element to how that love story plays out. And if you're a fan of the True Blood TV show, you get so much of that in these, and also a lot of differences. There's so many more layers. There's more mysteries because there's just more of these books. So yeah, if you like the series, just check out the books. But it is a long series, so it takes a while to get to the end. Now, we're on to my top 3, and that is top 3 for the romantic content as well as the fantasy content within these books. And this is the series that I've read probably the most times out of all of these book series. I first read these books almost a decade ago now. It's about 9 years ago. And it is Kelley Armstrong's Otherworld series, or the Women of the Otherworld series. It's known by both. And this is the first book in the series. This is Bitten, which also had a TV show that was very short-lived based upon it. The first 2 seasons of that show are excellent and do adapt a lot of the elements of the first 2 books. The third, I think they were just rushed because they were trying to stuff everything into one season, which takes literally 13 books to get through. But it wasn't terrible considering the constraints. But the books, they're just so excellent. There's actually many love stories in these books because they follow several different female characters, perspectives that are women of the other world, as the title suggests. In the case of Elena, she is the only female werewolf because female werewolves aren't born, they are bitten, and they always die. No one else survived being bitten in the first transformation, but she did. And she was bitten by the man she was in love with, her fiance, Clay. And it's their love story that's, I think, probably the strongest in the entire series. But I do have other love stories in the series I really thoroughly enjoy. And read all the books because you see moments with Clay and Elena in almost every book. Although they have a very troubled past to their relationship because of everything that came with her transforming into a werewolf and being thrust into this new world, their relationship, once they get over their stuff and get back together and figure things out, is so solid and so supportive and loving. There's a lot of references back to their past and how much troubles they had before finally ultimately reconciling. They were very tumultuous, very on and off, but they proved that they could get past their stuff, they could forgive. And once some secrets that were being held were exposed to the light, it gave understanding between the two of them. And that honesty is so important. It's important in every relationship. So that's part of why I love these books. Plus, it's so fun to just see them go throughout the entire series. And it's also an epic fantasy world that's created. It's an urban fantasy with this epic world of how it entwines with the human one. Amazing. Again, I've read these books several times and I do highly recommend them. Again, just like the Sookie Stackhouse novels, there's a lot of them. There's 13 of these. Plus, there's several short story collections and also a duology following these that I haven't read yet, but I do plan on reading. So yeah, very, very great. Check it out if you want a great, werewolf love story. And also there's witch love stories and there's, demonic love stories. There's a lot of stuff going on in these books. Very fun. So that was my number 3 pick. My number 2 is actually the only series that I've only read once, and it's also the only YA series on this list. Not by any, you know, I didn't plan it to be the only YA series, but I read it back at the beginning of the year, well, end of last year, beginning of this year, because it was one of my holiday presents for my husband. And it is Holly Black's Cruel Prince trilogy, also known as the Folk of the Air trilogy. And this is excellent enemies to lovers romance. Jude and Cardan are so engaging as characters, and they work really well together as characters. And the romance, it's sweet, it's enjoyable. It is a little twisted, but in a very fun way. And I mean, clearly, I love everything fairy, so the fact that this is very much centered in the world of fairy, that's why it's a novel of Elfame. That is another name for Fairyland, and it's the one they use in this. And they actually give you maps of what that world looks like. So beautifully written. And Holly Black is kind of a master of writing fairy books, and she does derive a lot from old folklore, which is a big selling point for me. So you're getting this great novel based in fairy and fairy tales and folklore that also has a really fun love story element to it. So that's my number 2. And I definitely will be rereading those books, of course. But my number 1 is a series that I first read maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I've read it 2 or 3 times at this point, and that is the Discovery of Witches series. It's also known as the All Souls trilogy, but there is a 4th book. So it's a companion to the All Souls trilogy. Excellent. And the TV show made from these books is amazingly done, beautifully acted, beautifully shot. And when it comes to having a love story woven throughout an epic fantasy world narrative, this does it perfectly. I think it's probably the strongest just love story on the list. Even though it is a bit of an insta-love thing at the beginning, there's so much depth that goes into that, and their relationship evolves so complexly throughout the trilogy that you could forgive that it almost feels like insta-love at the beginning. And this is a vampire and witch love story. Matthew's a vampire, Diana is a witch, and it's this really amazing world where vampires, witches, and demons are just existing amongst humans, so that urban fantasy setting. But there's a twist that there are all of these rules in place to keep humans from finding out about the existence of these other races in order to protect themselves from being persecuted because of how many times supernatural beings have been persecuted in the past. And Deborah Harkness, the author, is an actual historian. So the history woven throughout, especially in the 2nd book, is mind-boggling if you're a history nerd like myself, especially if you really have a thing for Tudor history, Tudor England history, because that's all the 2nd book is. They go back to the Elizabethan times. Lots of fun stuff. I highly recommend this if you want a truly, truly romantic love story with a little bit of spice and very fun. Reading for your lover. May is for lovers, right? And spring is for lovers. So that is why I'm doing this video, along with it being my actual wedding anniversary. So I was in the lovey mood. I do hope you've enjoyed these 5 series recommendations. Do let me know if you've read any of these and which is your favorite of them. and any other fantasy series that have a really good romantic plot or subplot that you would like to recommend to me. Just let me know. And I do hope you have a fantastic week, everyone. Please do like, comment, subscribe. Check out my blog, whiteroseofavalon.life, for even more content. Until next time. Bye now.